Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. So inshallah, today we're going to be starting the fourth chapter, and you'll do the quiz afterwards, inshallah. So the fourth chapter is about how to enter paradise and keep away from hellfire. So this also covers it covers the pillars of Islam and the pillars of Iman, pillars of Islam mainly. And there's a ayah and there's one hadith. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created Jannah and Nar. He's created Jannah and Nar, and some people are destined to go to Jannah and some people are destined to go to Hellfire. And that all depends on the person's actions. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran about these two groups, people who are going to Jannah and people who are going to Hellfire, and he says they're not the same. So also we're going to see in the hadith coming, how a person can enter paradise and how he can stay away from hellfire. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَفَمَنْ كَانَ مُؤْمِنًا كَمَنْ كَانَ فَاسِقًا لَا يَسْتَوُونَ أما الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فلهم جنات المأوى نزلا بما كانوا يعملون وأما الذين فسقوا فمأواهم النار كلما أرادوا أن يخرجوا منها أعيدوا فيها وقيل لهم ذوقوا عذاب النار الذي كنتم به تكذبون. This is in Surah Sajda. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, is the one who is a believer, the one who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who believes in the day of judgment and believes in the pillars of Iman and is a true believer. Can he be like someone who's a fasiq, someone who's disobedient to Allah, someone who is a disbeliever? Fasiq is someone who's left obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can they be the same? No, they're not going to be the same. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, as for those who believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have Iman and they came with Amal Salih, they did righteous deeds, then they're going to have Jannah, they're going to be going to Jannah. Okay? They will be entertained in the gardens in paradise. As for the disbelievers and those who are disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are going to hellfire, their abode will be hellfire. Okay? And every time they try to come out, okay, from hellfire, they will be pushed down into it. Every time they try to come out, and they feel the heat and the fire pushing them from beneath like a furnace, and then it goes down a little, and they're pushed down. So they will try to break out, but they can never break out from the prison of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is hellfire, because either the person he's disobedient to Allah and he's committed sins, but he's a believer, he's going to come out one day, or he's someone who is a disbeliever, he's going to be in there forever. So you will be with who you are imitating. So if a person is a believer but he's acting like a non-believer by drinking alcohol, committing zina, having relationships out of Islam, out of marriage or wedlock, or he's not, or the sister's not wearing hijab, or the guy, or they're involved in drugs. So if the person is doing these deeds and he's imitated the non-believer in his actions, although he's not the same in his belief, so he will be with him, will be in hellfire with him, but his iman would at the end take him out. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to the people, taste this punishment, taste the hellfire, okay? Because the disbelievers also, they will be saying, there is no hellfire, there is no Jannah, there is no next life, we will become sand, will become dust, and that's how we get destroyed. So as we can see here, there's two groups, people in Jannah and people in hellfire on the day of judgment. There's no in between, there's no 50-50. You're either with the people who are believers on the day of judgment, or you're with the disbelievers. But if you're a believer, you'll come out from hellfire. Okay? So that's the first ayah, which tells us two people will only be fariqun fil jannat wa fariqun fil nar. two groups, a group in Jannah and a group in Hellfire. The next hadith, which is narrated by Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiyallahu anhu, said, قال قلت يا رسول الله أخبرني بعمل يدخلني الجنة ويباعدني من النار. I could read the translation, but Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiyallahu anhu says, Ya Rasulullah, tell me something I can do that will let me enter Jannah and will take me far away from hellfire. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لَقَدْ سَأَلْتَ عَنْ عَظِيمٍ وَإِنَّهُ لَيَسِيرٌ عَلَى مَنْ يَسَّرَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. He said, you've asked a very important question, and it's easy for the one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, come with Tawheed. Worship Allah alone and don't associate any partners with Him, which is Tawheed. We already talked about what Tawheed is, to worship Allah alone. وَتُقِيمُ الصَّلَاةِ, and to establish Salah. وَتُؤْتِ الزَّكَاةِ, to give Zakah. So these are the pillars of Islam. وَتَصُومُ Ramadan, and to fast the month of Ramadan. وَتُحُجُّ الْبَيْتِ, and to go to Hajj. Okay, so for the person to go to Jannah, he has to do he has to cover the 5 pillars of Islam. Okay, which is the Shahada, Salah, Zakah, Sawm, Hajj. ثم قال ألا أدلك على أبواب الخير. Then he said, should I not tell you about the gates or the doors that will lead you to even more good? Okay, so now he's telling him about optional acts, optional fasting. He said, as-sawm, optional prayer. So as-sawmu junnah. He said, fasting is a shield. So you do more fast. You fast Monday, Thursday. You fast 3 days in a month. You fast Ashura. You fast Arafah. Okay, so fasting is a shield. It protects you from hellfire, and it protects you from sins. وَالصَّدَقَةُ تُطْفِئُ الْخَطِيئَةَ. The charity also, it wipes away your bad deeds. If you give charity, it wipes away your bad deeds. كَمَا يُطْفِئُ مَاءُ النَّارِ. Just like water extinguishes fire. وَصَلَاةُ الرَّجُلِ فِي جَوْفِ اللَّيْلِ ثُمَّ تَلَى. And also the salah you pray at the middle of the night. Then he read the ayah. تَتَجَافَى جُنُوبُهُمْ عَنِ الْمَضَاجِعِ. Their sides become dry because they stand in prayer and at night. So basically, if the person is awake at night and everybody's asleep, that means he is getting even closer to Allah. He's doing optional salah, which is qiyamul layl. Okay. So then the Prophet ﷺ said, should I not tell you, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكَ بِرَأْسِ الْأَمْرِ وَعُمُودِهِ وَذُرْوَةَ سَنَامِهِ. Should I not tell you about the head of the matter? And should I not tell you about its pillar and its peak? Now he's trying to tell him, to look after the most important things, which is Ra'sul Amr al-Islam. The head of this matter is basically to say Shahada. So if the person says the Shahada, okay, and he believes in it and is correct, then his Islam will be correct. But if he doesn't have the Shahada and he doesn't say La ilaha illallah properly, he doesn't fulfill it, it's like a head missing from a body. Okay, so Ra'sul Amr, the head of the matter, is to say La ilaha illallah. Secondly, Prophet ﷺ said that the Salah is like the pillar. If the person is not praying Salah, then his Islam is shaky. We're going to see that actually some scholars said, according to the hadith, if the person leaves Salah, he's not even a Muslim, he's a kafir. That's the strongest opinion. And then he said the peak of the matter, which is like the hump of the camel, okay, like the highest thing of a building, of an animal, is jihad, which is Muslims will reach full prosperity. There will be a strong community when they have jihad, because that's like the defense for the Muslims. Otherwise, they will become weak, like what's happening around the world now in Gaza. people are destroying Gaza, but the Muslims can't do anything. They're weak, so they get trampled on, and that means Islam will become weak. The Muslims become weak. So jihad is just like the defense or the military that Muslims should have to protect themselves from the enemy, like what's happening around the world now. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, ثم قال ألا أخبرك بملاك ذلك كل شيء. Not tell you of something that will hold everything for you together. So let's say if the person praying salah, he's fasting, he's giving charity, he's doing all the duties, but he has a problem. His problem is he can't control his tongue. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ said, فأخذ بلساني وقال. He took his tongue. فقلت بلى يا رسول الله. فأخذ بلساني وقال. He took by his tongue and he said, كف عليك هذا. Look after this, or protect yourself from, the tongue. Because some people would pray their salah, fast, but then they don't speak to their parents in a good way. They talk back to their parents. They use words of shirk. They have bad akhlaq. They backbite. And that will destroy all their good deeds. Because on the day of judgment, people, hadith says a man would come with a mountain size of deeds. And then people will come to him and say, you did this to me on that day, you did this to me. And then he would have to give all these good deeds away. And then when he loses everything, or all his good deeds, then people will be giving him their bad deeds. So he'll become bankrupt. Okay? Then he'll be thrown into hellfire. So the Prophet ﷺ, the Mu'adh said, Ya Nabi Allah, wa inna lamu'akhiduna bima natakallam. Are we going to be taken to account for what we say? Then فَقَالَ ثَكِّلَتْكَ أُمُّكَ وَهَلْ يَكُبُّ النَّاسُ عَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ أَوْ عَلَى مَنَاخِرِهِمْ إِلَّا حَصَائِدُ أَلْسِنَتِهِم. Then he said, do you think the only reason why many people go to hellfire is because of what they said, the consequences of their words, and that's why they will be thrown to hellfire, or their noses will be on the ground and they'll be thrown head first into hellfire because of what they said. So basically, this hadith is telling us the pillars of Islam, and that we should look after it. And then also what looks after your pillars of Islam is your optional actions that you do. And then after all of that, you look after your after all of that, you look after your good deeds, so you don't become bankrupt by protecting yourself from other people. Okay, so people don't take your good deeds away from you. Okay, I'm going to look in the book now just to show you what we've covered. Inshallah. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So I remember last week I told you, I think you did a quiz of it as well. So you were supposed to look over the pillars of Islam and the pillars of Iman. Who knows the pillars of Islam? Who can tell me the pillars of Islam? The pillars of Islam.
Shahada.
Okay, Shahada.
Salah.
Salah.
Okay.
Next.
Ramadan.
Zakah. Yeah, Som, Ramadan, and Hajj. Make sure you're looking at the book though. Okay, who can tell me the meaning of the Shahada? What does the Shahada mean? When you say La ilaha, what does that mean? Does it mean there is no God but God?
There is no God except Allah.
Okay, there is no God except Allah. But there's still something missing.
We have to worship His prophets. Messenger.
So if somebody says there is no God except Allah, but then somebody might come and say, well, there are other gods that are worshipped. So God is everything that's worshipped. So the person is going to say, I have a God, my God is Jesus, and I worship him. I have a God, my God is Brahma, and I worship him. Some people might even say, I am a God myself, I worship myself. So how could you tell what would be the true meaning of La ilaha illallah? Because that goes, if we translate it as there's no God but God, we're going to be back to square one. It's like saying there is no sky but sky. There is no Muhammad but Muhammad, like square one, going back to square one. So what does it mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means there is no God worthy of worship except Allah. La ma'buda bihaqqin illa Allah. Okay, so first you deny everything. There is no God. You deny, if you stop there, that means you haven't believed. So you're denying all gods. And then you affirm and you say only Allah deserves, except Allah, which means only Allah is deserving of worship. Then a person can ask, why is only Allah deserving of worship? Then you can go into like saying that because Allah is the creator, the sustainer, the provider, and you can use the Quran to prove that Allah is the true God. Okay? So that's the meaning of the Shahada. The meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah is here anyway. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen as well?
Yes.
Can you see my screen as well?
Yes.
Okay. So what does Muhammad Rasulullah? Muhammad Rasulullah, you should have already read this, but I'm just going over it. So Muhammad Rasulullah means you don't only believe Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but ista'atuhu fima amar. تصديقه فيما أخبر وطاعته فيما أمر واجتناب ما نهى عنه وزجر. So to believe in everything he's told us, okay, which is here, entails to believe whatever he's informed us, to avoid everything he has prohibited, and warn against, and to stay away from everything he's warned against, and to worship to worship Allah only the way he's legislated. So that is the meaning of Muhammad Rasulullah. You have to actually follow him to fulfill Muhammad Rasulullah. Okay, to protect your aqidah, so you don't, or your creed or your belief, so you don't end up in hellfire, you need to do some of these things, which is, first of all, don't make the world your greatest concern. I think we already talked about that in the first chapter. You have to worship Allah alone, and which is only come with worship. You have to give Allah His right by worshiping alone. You make dua. You do sacrifice, you live and die only for Allah, and know that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts worship. You only do for Him alone, okay, according to Sunnah. You can't make up your own worship. Like some people, they started to say, fast for the global day of fasting for Palestine. You can't make that day because you're supposed to be worshipping Allah. Allah tells us what days to fast, and you can't make a global day, a new day for fasting. You have to love Allah and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than anyone else. That will help you to follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah. You accept Allah's names and attributes, so you don't change them, distort them. But we'll cover this as well in the other book. You stay away from innovation and bid'ah. You don't add new things to religion. You accept the Quran and Sunnah as the main source. You don't exaggerate in praising Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You don't worship graves. You don't call to anything other than Allah. You follow the Quran and Sunnah. You celebrate the two Eids and not other festivals. You stay away from the signs of being a hypocrite. You tell people to do the good, forbid the evil. You only make an oath with Allah's name. So you say Wallahi. You don't say I swear by my mother or things like that. I swear on my life. You can't say that. You don't look at. You don't believe in omens or superstition, like if you walk under a ladder, something's gonna happen, or if you open an umbrella inside a house, something's gonna happen. We don't believe in that. It's all superstition. Also, you know that practicing sihr and or magic, witchcraft, and all of that is disbelief. You shouldn't learn it, and you shouldn't go to fortune tellers, diviners. Sorry, sometimes people go to, they look on some websites which uses numerology, and they look at their name, like the name has not, every letter has a meaning, and then they check what their name means, and they look at, the horoscopes and all of that. That's not allowed. Okay. Also, if I go down, you should stay away from innovation. So bid'ah, we're going to see many people have fallen into bid'ah. If a person goes into bid'ah, it's like he's saying that, the religion is not complete. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received an ayah saying that, al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islam dinan. That today I perfected the religion for you and completed my blessings upon you. So the religion is complete. We don't need anything else. Also, here it talks about the unseen knowledge that tells you that you shouldn't believe in fortune tellers because they try to predict things that only Allah can predict, like when the day of judgment is going to happen, when it's going to rain. They can predict by they can predict when there's signs, but they can't predict like 1 year ahead. Say, oh, it's not going to rain, things like that. So there has to be signs for them to predict. But also, like what's in the womb, only Allah knows if it's going to be a boy or a girl before the baby is born, before the signs come out, before the angels know. But you can't, claim that what the baby is going to be before the signs appear. And also, nobody knows what they're going to earn tomorrow. So, you always say, inshallah. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And also, you don't know where you're going to die. So I think you cover this. Also, we should obey the Muslim leaders. This is all how to get to Jannah as well. People who don't obey the leaders, I think you read this, but if you have to obey leaders who are Muslim, as long as they're Muslim, you obey them. If you're living in a non-Muslim country, you obey them according to what is agrees with Islam. Whoever's against Islam, you don't have to practice it. But I don't think anybody's going to force you because it's human rights. So, for example, if a person is forced to remove his hijab, okay, or a woman is forced to remove her hijab, like in France, then they shouldn't actually be in that country. Okay, if a person says I can't move, then he will be excused because then you're forced and you don't have ability. But you have to be able to practice Islam that's one of the conditions of living in a non-Muslim country. You have to be able to practice it to show your Islamic identity. Also, because not obeying the leaders leads to a lot of corruption, like what's happened in Iraq, what happened, for example, in Libya. Even if the non-Muslim, it's better to have a criminal as a leader than to have no leader because it causes more chaos. Wallahu a'lam. I think that's all it covers. I think it kind of summarizes a lot of basically what you need to do to get to Jannah. Any questions on this? Any questions?
No.
Any questions?
No.
Okay. Khair, inshallah. So, khair, that's fine. I'm just going to start the next lesson. So I think I gave you homework for this one as well to do the quiz. Maybe we can do the quiz at the end. Obviously, I give you something to read every week. So next week we're going to do the seerah, but I get you to read it beforehand, inshallah. Okay, inshallah. I'm just going to start the next one. So we're doing 2 books. The other book I've actually prepared. It's an ebook. It's available as an ebook. It's only £5. If you want the hard copy as well, I'll be putting that up on Amazon, inshallah. Okay, let me just open the other one. While I'm opening, do you have any questions?
No.
Also, today I'm using my phone. Can you hear me clearly? Just to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, right. I'm going to do this topic with you. It's a very important topic. Let's share my